The husband and children of Huawei's Meng Wanzhou are granted permission to travel to Canada, while the families of Kovrig and Spavor are not allowed to travel to China. This is the Great White North Report. Okay, this came out last week in CBC, and it turns out that the husband and children of Huawei's chief exec, Meng Wanzhou, were granted permission to travel to Canada by Global Affairs Canada in order to secure more consular and family access for Kovrig and Spavor. It's like a deal, but it's pretty one-sided and mostly in China's favor. Canadian immigration officials have given family members permission to travel to Canada, and it was made in accordance with Canada's laws and strict compliance with the current travel orders in council. Really. In court yesterday, it was revealed that her husband, Liu Xiaozhong, and her two children were granted permission to come to Canada by Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada officials. Interesting. I don't think they're immigrants. They're definitely not refugees, and they're most certainly not citizens of Canada. And it turns out her husband came in October, and in December were followed by the couple's children. They were granted permission to come here through a process that allows family members of foreign nationals to visit Canada temporarily. That might be under normal circumstances, yes, but during a height of a pandemic, and at a time where it's a diplomatic thing, that shouldn't be allowed. Now, Global Affairs said the minister was aware of the exemption that was granted, so it's an exemption. Now, it should be noted that she has been arrested and is awaiting extradition to the United States through charges. This happened in 2018, so it's been just over 2 years now. She is out on bail, and she's living in a $1 million mansion in Vancouver. Now, under her bail conditions, she has to wear a GPS ankle monitoring bracelet and is confined to her home from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day. And she is allowed to travel around Lower Mainland with security guards during the day. She has to pay for the security herself. Meanwhile, Kovrig and Spavor are sitting in a jail, and they're lucky to get an hour in the exercise yard. Basically, Canada allowed this so they could obtain agreements involved increased family and consular access for Kovrig and Spavor. What that doesn't mean that the family of those two men are going to go to China and visit them. It just refers to resumption of consular visits and exchange of family letters that they were granted prior to the outbreak of the pandemic. From January to October last year, family and Canadian officials had no access to the two men, meaning they were probably under intense interrogation at the time. Meanwhile, Meng the Merciless has launched a bid in the BC court to loosen her bail restrictions, and she's claiming she had survived thyroid cancer and has hypertension. Claims the changing roster of guards who accompany her during daylight hours is placing her at heightened risk of catching COVID-19, or the CCP virus as I like to call it. Now, Conservative MP Rachel Dancho said the decision to grant Meng's family a pass to enter Canada is an insult to the families of Kovrig and Spavor. I quite agree. This is why Trudeau needs to go. He's granting the Chinese special privileges while Canadians can't. Trudeau and his Liberals rolled out red carpet and granted a special travel exemption to the Huawei CFO family to reunite in time for the holidays. An insult to the millions of Canadians who were told by this government not to visit loved ones. So you see the double standards there. And these are people that came from the country that brought this to us. So the husband claims the constant presence of guards is also preventing his family from spending quality time together without attracting the attention of strangers anxious to photograph the woman at the center of a high-profile international court case. Right, you draw the attention upon yourself. So the proceedings are going to get underway beginning in March and continue into various stages until the end of April. They're still trying to get this case tossed out because of alleged violations of Meng's rights. In Canada, she has no rights. She's not a citizen. She's not even a permanent resident. She just happens to own 2 houses in Vancouver. Keynote, Canadians are not allowed to own houses in China. Meanwhile, the head of the security firm tasked with guarding Meng claims the Huawei executive is breaking guidelines at the same time while she's trying to loosen her bail restrictions. And it's because she's living a privileged pandemic lifestyle under 24-hour surveillance. Now, she would be considered a flight risk. I think so. This guy, Doug Maynard, president of Lionsgate Risk Management, says he believes Meng is still at risk of extraction by a foreign government or targeted by organized crime, meaning the Chinese, the Chinese Communist Party. So it turns out her husband was the first witness of the recent hearing. And under cross-examination, her husband conceded that nothing in the bail conditions prevents Meng from going to malls, coffee shops, and grocery stores with her two children. So she's walking around, doing whatever she wants. And he also made that despite her confessed concerns about catching the CCP virus, Meng lived with him as he quarantined at their Vancouver mansion, keyword, after arriving in Canada on a flight from Hong Kong last fall. The same went for their kids when they flew to Canada before Christmas. Canada's guidelines say you should avoid quarantining at home if you cannot separate yourself from those you live with. Basically, they have enough money that they could have stayed at a hotel for 14 days. My cousin lives in Nunavut. She came home, she has to quarantine in Winnipeg for 14 days and quarantine again down here for 14 days before she can do anything. And then when she gets back to Nunavut, she had to quarantine for another 14 days. She was basically out for 42 days. And Maynard told that, who was a Crown witness, said that COVID-19 was as much concern for him and his staff as it was for Meng and her family. He's repeatedly expressed concerns about behavior of Meng and her entourage, keyword entourage, during the pandemic. Meng the merciless intermingled with her household bubble of professional people who were surrounded her, Huawei employees and Chinese consular staff. They had gatherings in the past 3 months of around 10 people where food and wine was shared in a restaurant closed for the occasion. She's frequent trips downtown for private shopping sprees where Vancouver's high-end retailers close their doors for her. So they'll close the doors, kick everyone else out just for her. She's being treated like a princess here. If it was me, put her in jail. Put her in a prison with some biker chick. Testimony was concerned a picture taken by CBC photographer Ben Nels of what was supposed to be a clandestine photo shoot with Meng's entourage on the courthouse steps last May in advance of the release of a court decision. You can see all the participants giving a thumbs up and flash peace signs. In the event of a win, you notice that none of them are wearing masks or are physically distancing themselves. So she doesn't really care. She's just trying to use that as an excuse. But she's not. Meng's treating this like a big joke, and we should be doubling down on her. Trudeau has got to step up the pressure on China and stop treating her like some kind of princess. Put her in jail with the rest of them, because Covering and Spavor are suffering because of this, as well as millions of Canadians because of the Chinese Communist Party unleashing the virus upon the world. Anyway, any Canadians out there, let me know what you guys think in the comment section about what we should do with Meng. I really want to know. YouTube probably censors this kind of stuff. And hit the like button, subscribe, whatever. Until next time, this has been the Great White North Report.